Welcome, welcome, welcome. I think all I need to do is share screen. Share screen. So here we are, right? The infamous Ramen Raider. Let me open it up in VS Code. Let me open the index HTML. We'll kind of get a start of what it looks like. Not much here, but there's something. There's something, right? Oh, let me get this ready too in case words aren't enough. Little thing. And yeah, as always, just stop me in my tracks if you've got that question. Right? So here we are, right? It gives us a little backstory, right? We're building an app for some ramen. Cute picture to kind of show us what it should look like. Totally doesn't look like that right now, right? But we'll make it happen, Some setup. Open the index.html, done. Write the code in the index.js file, ready to do that. I think all we have to do is fire up this JSON server. And turn my computer into a web server that's listening to listening to the network, right? And waiting to give stuff out of this db.json file. Questions here. We're just starting the JSON server and any of this, right? All right, cool. So we got the server up. It's running. We can check it. Just by taking this and plugging it into like a web browser, right? Because a web browser makes GET requests, and we can see this is up and good to go, right? We can see from the server log that it heard a GET request to the ramens, right? We're seeing that. So cool. Going back to the README. It's giving us some endpoints. Don't confuse the base URL, right, with the URL for the resource, Just going back to the README, this is just the base URL, and the base URL has endpoints of this, or an endpoint of that, or something. Questions there? With an endpoint, a resource, whatever? All right, we're keeping this thing grooving. And then right off that, straight to the deliverables. So see all the ramen at the top. It's kind of like this top one. Clicking on the ramen and seeing its details or whatever, and getting the form to work. So I want to see all the ramen images in that top div. What to do? Any takers? How would one even start with something like this?
We have to fetch.
Fetch. I'm hearing it, right? Yeah, we definitely have to fetch. So let's fetch. Fetch to, what was it? Localhost at a port of 3000 / ramens, right? Our resource given to us here, right? Okay, we done? What's next?
Then.
Exactly.
Two of them.
This whole thing right here, right? The return value of this is a promise, right? And just like you can call .map on an array, right? You can call .then on a promise, right? What does .then take as an argument?
A response?
Well, it takes a function. You're almost there, Pablo, right? It takes a straight up function, right? You could put a function in there to do the work, when this promise gets resolved. But you're on the right track, Pablo. The function, like when .then invokes this function, right? .then will give the function an argument of this like response object, right? And all we need to do is make the return value of this function that response object with this JSON method called on it, right? And that's it. Then in our second .then, we can check to see if the stuff's coming up, and yeah, we've got ramen, right? But again, this is just a function you'll see more often in its arrow format, right? Still a function, right? And then of course, because these arrow functions have an implicit return of whatever's after it, you don't have to put the curly braces, just put the whatever, right? And then we have, and since there's only one argument, we only need, or only one parameter, we don't need the parentheses around that. So you'll see it like that. You'll see it like that. It's just a function with a very specific return value of that JSON method getting called on the response. Questions? All right. I'll keep trying though. I'll keep trying. But of course, yeah, we can console log what's coming back. It's coming back, and we have access. We have access to this thing. Now log is a function. Log is a function we're passing this. But if we wanted to pass it another, anonymous function, function, right? That would only do this, just the same way that .then gave this the function, function an argument of the response, .then will give this function something, right? Whatever this is the job that this thing's doing, it's going to give to the next one, right? The body of the response, which should be our Ramen's array, right? And then we'd be able to console log, put some more space in here. We'd be able to console log this Ramen's array, right? I think we're still good, right? Yeah, we're still good. So yeah, in the same way, it looks a little cleaner to use the arrow syntax, right? But that's all that's going on. That's all that's going on. We're doing this fetch. We're taking it out of the envelope, right? And then we have access to that data in this new function. I'm going to put the code block back, though. I'm going to put the code block back and just put this stuff on new lines so we can have some space to work. Space to work in here. Because we want to do more than just console log this Ramen's array, right? Going back to the README, it's telling us when the page loads, request the data, okay, done. Then display the images for each Ramen, right? Display the images for each Ramen using an image tag. Here, let's just get this whole thing. Display the image tag div, right? Oops. Go like, right? Display the image for each of the Ramen. Right? We're console logging this Ramen's array. So we know the Ramen are in here. But we need to display the image using an image tag. So we're getting some clues here. We're getting some clues here for sure. I think like this right here might be a clue, right? This right here might be a clue. So how could I do something for every one of those Ramen objects in that array?
For each.
For each.
And how would I use for each, right? So for each. Okay. We gonna call it on something?
On the Ramen's array.
On the Ramen's array, absolutely. So we can, instead of console logging the Ramen's array, right, we can just say, Ramen's array dot for each. And then what does for each take as an argument?
Could be anything, right?
Sorry, what was that, Max?
Could it be just like data?
It can't be just any data, right? Like
Function.
for each doesn't take a string, right? It doesn't take a string. It doesn't take a float, right? We can't put a float in there, It doesn't take an array, right? What does for each take as an argument?
A function.
Absolutely, another function, right? Another function. F-U-N-C function, right? And just like .then invokes the function and gave it something, right? The same way this .then invoked the function and gave it something. For each will invoke this function and give it something, right? Caleb, go for it.
I did
.map is there, is that still okay?
I mean, it gets the job done for sure, right? It gets the job done for sure. And if you want to use .map tomorrow, cool. As long as the page works. As long as the page works, any avenue you take to try to get to the solution is going to be good, as long as it's going to be the right one, as long as the solution works, right? The difference though between like for each map, if I want to say like const new array is equal to whatever dot map, right? This is when we would need to use dot map if we want to make a new array for whatever reason, right? But we're still going to iterate through the data structure, right? We're still going to go and look at every single object in that array and do something for each object, right? And we can jump in down how .map works, right? In short, the return value of the function of what goes in the new array, right? But yeah, I mean, if you're not building an array, don't need to use map, you know. And for each, because for each doesn't return anything, it just returns undefined. But yeah, either will work and get the job done, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Excellent question. But yeah, so now we're in this function. When for each invokes this function, it will invoke the function as many times as there are something in that array, right? So if we have like an array of objects, you know, if we have an array of objects, right? If we called for each on this, it would invoke the function 4 times, right? The first time it would give the function this one, right? And the second time this one, and the third time this one. So we can always assume this will be one, you know, ramen object, right? This will be one ramen object, you know, in being given to our function, right? One ramen object in the ramen's array, right? For each will give the function a ramen object. Questions?
I have a question on how do you set a condition for the for each? Let's say you have 10 objects and you just want to use the first 5.
Oh, okay.
That's something that's always confused me, because I realized when you use the word for each, it's going to give you each one. But if you want to set a condition for it, say like the first 5, how do I get the first 5?
Yeah. Definitely a specific case, definitely not something we're doing here. But what I would do, I'd probably make a new array and call the for each on that. I'd call like .splice or .slice or something to try to get an array of the size I wanted, right? Like if you wanted the first 5, I think it's slice 0, 5 are the 2 arguments for slice, right? Or so you could pick out what parts of the original array you want, make a new array, and just call for each on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Cool. If there's no other questions. All right, let's clean this up a little bit so it looks like some of the other functions, right? We don't necessarily always use the function keyword in our arrow functions, right? It reads a little bit cleaner. But now here we are in a different scope where we have access to a ramen object variable that we just made, right? Let's check that. Let's just check that and make sure it works. Ramen object, right? Don't need that anymore. No other weird console logs. Yeah, we're in business. We're able to run this console log as many times as there are objects in that array. All right. So now we're in a place where we're looking at each of the ramen images, right? How do we create a new image tag each time? Right? Do I do like document create element image? Do I do that like right there?
No,
Why not?
because it's outside of the function.
Exactly. This will happen only one time, right? Because it's in the scope of this outer function right here, right? We want to do this every time we've got a new ramen object that we're talking about. So we can make a new image element, right? A new image element every time we see a ramen object. Look at a ramen object. And that works, right? If we say image element, right? We should see got a bunch of empty image tags. Right? Questions? All right. How do we change the image tag though? And give it a specific attribute? You know, just quickly Googling HTML image tag. First hit, it shows it looking like this. And I'm sure I don't need all of this stuff, but definitely like what the image is. And like right now ours are empty, right? So how can I change this attribute of my element in the JavaScript, right?
Assign the image source.
And how do you do that?
It
Set
would be
attribute.
image element dot.
SRC.
Exactly.
Equal.
Remember, this is just a JavaScript object, right? And sure, it represents one of these. But when we make a model of this using a JavaScript object, these attributes right here, like alt and source and all of these, width and height, they're kind of nested, whatever, but like source and stuff, you know, are now just attributes of our JavaScript object. No different than if we had like an object with a key of source that pointed to a string or something, you know? But yeah, just changing the image element source, we can change an attribute of the element, right? But what am I going to change it to?
Ramen object.
Object.
Dot, what was it? Was it page?
Oh, dot image.
Yeah, dot image, right? Remember, this ramen object is one of the objects that came back from our DB.json with all of these different key value pairs. I believe, yeah, the key of image is the one that does the business, right? So if we go back to here, we say ramen object dot image. What happens when we console log these now, right? There we go. A little bit closer, right? They're just not on the page yet, though. How can we get these image elements up here on the page? Because I think it's saying inside the ramen menu div.
You append.
What? How does that work? What do I just go like append?
You would grab the get element by ID ramen menu.
Okay, cool. So yeah, document a get element by ID invoked with a string of ramen dash menu, like that.
Yes.
Okay. What else?
And then you console log it first.
Well, yeah, we could totally console log this just to be sure, right? Okay, it gave us the ramen menu, but it gave us to us 5 times.
Yeah,
Why did it do that?
because there's 5 images.
And
Because
specifically,
it's inside the for each.
exactly, Max, hit it right on the head. We're doing this console log inside the for each, so we're actually looking for this element 5 times, right? But it's definitely the element we want. It's definitely the element we want. Maybe we can just assign it to a variable, right? We can say, you know, const top container is equal to that. Right? Now if we console log that the one time, I think we should be okay. Right. Yeah. Yeah, ramen images here. That's totally where they're going, right? And we can see it's popping up here, right? How do we? Oh yeah, go for it.
Did you took that out of
Took it out of this function right here.
okay. I did wrong.
And you don't have to. You could totally keep it in there, right? That works too. It's just that we need to kind of keep in the back of our head the and we'll talk about this more next week and stuff. What's called the time and space complexity, right? Sounds like a Back to the Future story or whatever, right? You know, if you look for something and you find it, there's no reason to go looking for it again, you know? And that's what stuff like query selector or get element by ID, that's what these functions are doing. They're like going on an adventure to find something, right? And if I found the gold at the rainbow or something, you know, I don't want to have to go look for it again. I got the gold, right? I got the gold. So since we're going on our adventure inside our for each, it's happening once, you know, it's happening twice. It's happening as many times as there are ramen in that array. And it's just, you know, little slightly more efficient to have it outside. And honestly, with web applications, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference, if any, especially to the user, right? But something to keep in the back of your head when you're developing. You know, am I doing too much work? Am I doing too much work? You know.
So is that now in a global scope?
Not yet. Not yet. You know, I believe the global scope is where this fetch is happening.
Yeah.
Right? You know, so I don't think we couldn't console log, you know, top container here. Right? Nor could we do it, I think, outside of the fetch. Right? Which is right here. Yeah. Yeah, but if we do it inside the fetch, or the callback, the second dot then's callback, we can see it, right? End of second callback to second then, right? Dot then, right? So we do have a scope issue with this, but I don't think that's going to be a big deal yet. We may have to move it to the global scope, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Where were we? We done? Oh, hold on. No, we made an element. We changed an attribute of the element, and we're just trying to put it on the DOM. I think I heard append a little bit. What are we going to append to?
Where is it?
Don't you have to append to top container?
Container.
Absolutely. Once we build our image and we change its attribute, right? We're going to say dot append the image element. Right? There we go. We got some ramen. Questions? Questions there.
Can you show the difference between putting top container inside of the ramen object function? Because I got my images, but they were super big,
Yes.
like exaggerated.
Hold on. Right? We have our first console log, right? That only happens once. You know, why look for that div over and over again? Functionally, it makes no difference. Functionally, it makes no difference, right? But just moving this to different scopes allows it, or at least outside the scope of the for each, right? We don't need to do this more than once if we've already found it, you know. But again, not going to make it. It'll work either way. It'll work either way, right? I just wanted to touch on that. Does that help, Juan?
Maybe we could talk about it a little bit later. I'll show
Okay.
you my code.
All right, cool, yeah. Like what if you had it like the difference about having it, you know, like way out here outside of the fetch, right? Is that what you're talking about?
No, more inside the object, the ramen object array. Function that you have there.
The ramen
Place it
object
here.
function. You mean the for each that
Yes.
is passing a ramen object to? Okay, yeah, like putting it here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's just that it's happening over and over again, right? Oh, hold on. Top container's not defined. Why do we need to look for this over and over again? If we can look for it only once. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right, cool. Caleb, do you have a question? I saw a hand for a hot second.
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of piggyback off of Juan's. If we had the top container global, would it do the same thing?
Yeah, it would only run once because it's not inside a loop. It's not inside a loop, so it's only going to happen the one time. And then if it's out here, then every function can see it, which might be better because when we get to the form, we're going to need to see it out here anyway, right? Cool. But in short, you know, we're just doing three things. You know, we're make a new element, right? Change an attribute of that element, you know, put the new element on the DOM. That's it. Inside the for each though, inside the for each, so it can happen every time that we for every ramen object. For every ramen object, we'll put one of those top things on, or one of those menu items on the top. Max, go for it.
Just a quick question. Is there any disadvantage to making this for each function outside of the .then? Like if you just had it,
so like if we say, because let's see, we don't need anything. I mean, if this top container was right here, now top container would be outside of the scope, right? But because yeah, like you're absolutely right. We could take this and say, you know, function render single top, right, is the same thing as this, but we need to change it a little bit so it looks like a normal function, like that, and then just say for each render single top, right? Totally still works.
To that?
Totally
Okay,
still works,
okay.
right?
Cool.
And then, you know, this is probably the cleanest way to write it. You may say for each, you know, for each ramen in the array, we will then invoke render single top with each ramen in the array, right? And then this parameter right now here would then be a reference to this one, right? But since you're only passing this ramen object to the first argument of this function, and for each is just passing it to the first argument of this outer function, this one we're wrapping it in, you don't need to do that. You can just tell it, hey for each, invoke this function, and I'll just assume you're going to give it a ramen object, and we're good, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And really, you know what I'll do is I'm going to put it back, but we're going to do that. We're going to factor it out. We're going to see why we need to factor it out in a little bit, right? But yeah, absolutely. Is that it? Are we done with that first deliverable? Right. Going back to the README. See all the images in the div. Okay, done. Questions with just all over the place. Yeah, Sam, go for it.
So now I commented like out my code, and it's just kind of writing down yours just so I can kind of do a little comparison. But now I can't get like any of the images to pop up.
Okay. Okay, cool. Maybe something we can swing back to afterwards, right?
Yeah,
we can look at
fine.
unique cases, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, like, is it giving you an error?
Yeah, it just says uncaught in promise type error.
Yeah, so something's happening in your callback that you're passing a fetch, right?
Yeah, we can talk about it later.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to swing back to it. There's deliverable 1. That's done. So I think we need to click on one now. We need to click on an image, right, and see all the info. How's that going to work? I need to click on one of these and be able to talk about that one down here where it says image goes here and all this other stuff down here, right? Where do I even start with that?
Add an event listener.
Okay, where do I do that? Like right here. Can we say like document.add event listener? Like that?
I don't know. I didn't do this way, but if I had to guess, an educated guess, would it be top container, add event listener, click, like that?
Yeah, well, first of all, this is a trick. This is the wrong rabbit hole. Putting the listener on the whole document is probably the hardest way to do it, because then you got to look at the target and see, is it the button you clicked on? Is it the image you clicked on? Right? So I wouldn't necessarily do that. If you put the listener on the top container, right? How do we know like which image we're clicking on?
It would be on the image element.
Exactly. You throw the listener on this whole top container, anywhere you click, it's going to be the same thing. But if you attach it to the image that you made, right, it'll be unique to that image. So let's do that real quick. Let's say image element dot add event listener invoked, right? We're going to listen for a click and then do something. Right, we'll have an event. I don't think we need the event though, right? So we can just go like that. But we could do something in here. What can we do? What can we do to prove that we're console logging different ramens, right? Because well, first of all, let's just prove it works, right? Can we just console log? You know what ramen is this? Right? Okay, so we are getting clicks, and it's not happening when we click outside of it. But again, how do we know? How do we know which ramen we're talking about, right?
Would that be like the target if we pass the parameter in that?
Let's see. Let's go down this one rabbit hole. So console log, you know, target, right? Okay. Well, we know they're different. This proves they're different, but it's not enough information, right? We need names, images, restaurants, ratings, comments. We need all sorts of stuff. And this one, all the target is giving us is the element we clicked on. And like, sure, there's like some unique information there, but it's not enough. It's not enough for us to be able to populate that, like that main section, right? What could we console log right here that would show us all of the information in that ramen object?
The ID of it?
The event.
I'm hearing ID, I'm hearing event. ID's closer. Like we tried the event. I feel like the event is the wrong rabbit hole, right? Well, it's not. There's just no way. There's no way this event has like the all the event has really that's unique is this image thing, but it doesn't have the rating, it doesn't have the comment, it doesn't have the name,
Maybe
whatever.
form.
What's that?
Maybe form.
The form doesn't have any information yet, right? Because we're not to the form yet. Like when we submit the form, it'll make that new stuff. But all we're doing right now is we're clicking on that top bar. We're clicking on this top thing right here,
The
hoping.
Ramen's array.
What's that?
Would it be the Ramen's array?
Well, we're getting closer now because we know that all of the ramens are in the ramens array. And don't forget, we're inside.
Ramen object.
Exactly.
Oh, it's Ramen object.
Don't forget, we're still inside, like we're inside a function right now that is inside a function that has that ramen object variable in scope, right? And if we would just throw that in our console log, you know, we can then see that sure enough, these are different ramen objects that have all the information we need, right? All the information we need, you know. Questions there. Now, I forget who it was, but we're writing functions and functions and functions at this point, you know. So let's just back up a little bit and just say, you know, maybe render main and give it the ramen object, right? The ramen object that is declared as this parameter right here. So we made this variable right here, we can pass it to a yet unwritten function called render main. So let's write a function render main, which will assume this is a different variable in a different scope. It does refer to this one, but just to show the differences in scope, I'm going to call it that ramen object, right? And if we put a console log here, right, we're going to console log that ramen object. We should still have our console logs, right? Okay, yeah, we're still good. Questions here? Factoring out the functionality, right? Because this is like a whole bit of business we're about to do. We're about to, change all that stuff in the main section or whatever, right? Cool. Yeah, Julia, go for it.
So just to be clear, you just like refactored it, but the thing you did at first also works?
What, like having this console log here instead of a function? Yeah, it's literally the same thing.
Okay.
Right? Except now there's no such thing as I'd have to say ramen object to refer to this variable, right? But instead we'll just pass it as an argument to render main, and now we have like a slightly different variable name to represent a variable in a different scope that just refers to this one, right?
Okay, is there like is there one that would be better to do than the other?
What, just write whatever business we were going to write in here, just to write in here? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, do you recommend doing the first way or the second way?
I would recommend, and I put that other one back in when I factored out render top. I put it back in just because I want to hit the problem later where we need to factor it out or it's useful to. I would always factor out these functions. Well, I take that back. It'll be case by case. It'll be case by case for sure. Are you going to use the functionality again somewhere else, right? Then sure, factor out the function so you can use it wherever you want, right? Are we only going to do it the one time? Like this for each to make all of the new top things? Like, we're only going to render those top things the one time, right? So I'd probably keep this one inside the for each as opposed to, factoring out all of this and saying, const the plan is equal to all that, right? And say for each, the plan or whatever, you don't need to, right? You can just keep it in that for each for now. But to quick answer your question, case by case basis.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. So, go
sorry.
for it, Amira.
Why did we create the function render main again? I'm sorry.
Because this is going to start to look a little squirrely, right? A fetch with a function inside it, right? With another function inside it, with another function inside it, right? Now render main would be 5 functions deep or whatever. And it'll work either way. We don't have to factor it out, right? But just for the readability, just for if someone else is going to come along, for your own sake, right? What if something breaks? What if something breaks? It's easier to go, okay, maybe it's in render top because render top only does that one thing. Maybe it's in render main because render main only does that one thing. When you write all of your functions like anonymously in line, it works. It'll work, but if something breaks and you need to go back and maybe find where something is, it makes it harder. It makes it harder for sure. Does that make sense, Amira?
Yes.
All right, cool. And we're gonna factor out this top stuff too, because I got a feeling when we do the form's gonna have the same functionality, right? Are we broken? Does this still work? Hold on. Just in case. No, okay, we are not broken. We're all good still. So we have a ramen object. And let's just go back to the README real quick. Click on an image from the ramen menu div. Done. See all the info about that ramen displayed inside the ramen detail div. Right? Displayed inside the ramen detail div. So let's right? Where is that ramen detail div? Let's go to the HTML. Okay. Okay, cool. This is the ramen detail div, and we have these elements here. So these are the elements we need to change. I'm just going to put these in here. We need to change these, right? And then just going back to the README. It says all the info displayed inside the ramen detail div, and where it says insert comment here and insert rating here, right? So here's the first bit, right? Where does it say insert comment here and insert? Okay, so right here. So we got some more elements. We've got some more elements that I'm just going to copy paste over here, right? Gosh darn it. This stuff, whatever. There we go. So we've got some elements that we need to change, right? We've got an image. So let's write all these out. We need to change, right? We need to change the image, the name, the restaurant, right? The rating, and the comment, right? These 5 attributes have places to go on the DOM. And we have a ramen object with all of that information in there. How would I change it? How would I change it so the image changes? How would I change it so this one changes right there?
You would get element by ID.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You get a little let me say const main image element. I just want to differentiate it before we have another variable in a different scope called image element. So just to drive the point home, I'm going to call it main image element is equal to document.query selector. Oh no, you said, I think Mary said get element by ID. Let's mix it up. Get element by ID, right? What does it take as an argument? Does anyone know? What's that?
It'll take an ID.
Yeah, what data type though? Does it take a function?
A string.
A string, absolutely. And of course, it's a string of...
Detail
hold on.
Maybe.
Does the image have an ID? No.
Yeah, there's no ID. We have to
No.
get elements by class.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. I heard get element by class name.
By class.
There's no such thing as get element by class.
Query selector.
Query selector.
Class.
Okay. And then just dots.
Yeah. And then real quick, Pablo, I see the hand, but I just want to drive this point home. If you say document.get elements, you can see it here. Note the S. It's get elements plural by class name. So sure, you can grab stuff by its class with that stuff, with an instruction like that. But remember, it's not going to give you the one element you're looking for. It's going to give you some data structure. You're going to have to look at like index 0 or something to try to find it or whatever, right? A query selector. Query selector will probably be a faster way to get straight to it. Pablo, what's up?
So I put this on the chat earlier that I think I took the long way.
Mm-hmm.
But on the global scope, I grabbed the get element by ID ramen detail, and then individually assigned a variable name to each individual. So like once I grabbed that div with get element by ID, then I assigned that to a variable, okay, and then I referred to that variable and then grabbed each individual, image, H2 and H3. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, totally. Ramen detail, right? So you did something like this, and then further went like main dot query selector.
Yeah.
image or
and
whatever, right? And then to get to that one and stuff.
Yeah, and then like when we were doing the code within the function, I just referred to all the variables that I put in and just did it that way. Is that like the long way of doing it, or where am I at?
I would have to check under the hood for this one, right? Because you do one query selector to get to this stuff or whatever, right? And then to query select off of that, sure, you're invoking query selector again, but the data set it's looking through is smaller, right? So instead of looking through the whole document over and over again, you were just looking through what's in that div each time. I kind of like it. You know, again, insignificant in the grand scope of like of looking through a small text document or whatever, right? But it is the long way, but that long way might be shorter.
Can I show you what I have?
Well, we can circle back. Let's just keep just a quick solution on the recording, right? And then we'll circle back for all that. But very cool. Very cool. I'm just gonna grab them. I'm just gonna grab them as I see them, right? So, what was the first one? You know, we've got the main image element is a class detail image, so you could just be like, you know, dot detail image. If you want to be incredibly specific, right, you could say image dot detail image, but this should do it. And let's just test it. Let's just test it, right? So if we click on that, yeah, we see it. We see it each time, you know. Definitely don't have to go clicking or don't have to go looking for this with every click, right? It's not going to change. It's not going to change. So this would be another one where like this main image element, you know, I would put up top, and we'll do that in a second. So there's the main image element. What else do we need? We need the name. So we could do this again for const the name element, right, is equal to a class of name, I think is that one. So there's 2 down, right? Restaurant's gonna look kind of the same way, right, where we have this restaurant element, which is going to be a class of restaurant, restaurant. So there's 3 down, right? Caleb, go for it.
On a restaurant, you gotta put the U and A.
Oh, RESTAU, like that. Yeah, thank you. Don't have to worry about this console log right now. So we got the main image, we got the name, we got the restaurant. I think we need just this rating, and let's take it out of the p tag because that's insignificant, right? We could do get element by ID for this one, right? It has I think so. We say const rating element is equal to document dot get element by ID rating display. Right, and then finally, the comment. We have an H3 of comment, but that's not where it goes. We want to insert comment here, and this one too has a cute ID, right? So we can maybe just copy this whole thing and say comment element will be an ID of that comment display. Right. Questions there, right? Just grabbing stuff that's already on the DOM. Right, it was there when the page load. We had that HTML file that we can just grab that stuff. Right. Well, now we have. We can get rid of these notes too. It's done. We have all of these elements we want to change, and we have a Ramen object with all of the information. How do we change it? How do I change an attribute of this image element by chance? Right.
Isn't it dot source again, like for that image?
Well, remember that image element is a oh yeah, dot source, absolutely, right? Main image element dot source to change the source. What are we changing it to?
Isn't it the object ramen object dot, I think it's image.
Yeah, we did it before. It's dot image, right? So we got dot image to get to image. Let's see if that works. Right? So moment of truth. Bam. So that totally works, right? How about the name element? How do we change that one?
Text content.
Text content, right? Text content or inner text, right? Will both work fine. Text content. Total blog topic territory with this one. And then that ramen object, let's just go back to db.json and see the key value pairs. It's got a key of name. So we can just say, dot name, right? And then we should see the Naruto ramen, right? The Nirvana, Shiramaru. And then and so on and so forth. The restaurant element, right? We can change its text content to the ramen object dot I already forgot. Dot restaurant, right? Making it super simple for us. Restaurant. T-A-U, restaurant. I'm gonna mess up on that one. That one. The rating element, right? I'm just gonna make this a little bit quicker, right? We can do the rating element. That object dot rating, and finally the comment element dot text content is equal to that ramen object dot comment, I believe, right? Let's just try it out. No, insert comment here. It totally didn't work. COMMENTLEMENT dot text that. Seriously?
It's in that ramen object. There's an extra T.
Ramen. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't have my Chrome console up, right? Didn't have my Chrome console up and would have saw that. Would have saw that, right? But final tests. There we go. Do by the hype, right? Whatever, whatnot. So we're good. We're good there. Questions here with our render main function that just renders the main. Given an object, it will just render the main area with the information from that object, right? Getting back to where we're talking about 4.2, we don't have to go looking for these elements every time we click. Every time we click on the top, it's going to invoke render main because we got that listener going on. So we don't need to look for these with every click. So I think I'm going to move those up to our kind of like, this will be, oops, what was that? That was a keyboard command I'm not familiar with. Okay, cool. We have our DOM elements, in one place, right? We have our fetch in one place, and then we have like our functions, our function library down another one. We can kind of stay organized, right? But cool. Questions there? That's 2 deliverables down, right? Last but not least, I think we have this form. Right, this form. Let me just clean this up a little bit, right? Oops. So we've got a form on the page. It's new ramen form. How can I click this form? Let's just get the stuff back on. Click this form and have it not refresh the page. Have it not give me this like funky URL params up here, right? I don't want it to do that. How can we get started with this form?
Query select
I also made that.
Okay. I heard query selected form, but then I also made, yeah, Sam, go for it.
I remember watching a video of something to keep the page from like automatically refreshing. It was like an event dot like default something.
Prevent default.
Exactly.
Prevent default.
Forms are older than JavaScript, right? Forms existed before JavaScript did, so they have their own behavior, and we definitely need to stop it from happening. May, go for it.
Maybe I just am getting the word, like, not understanding the wording in this one, but it says the new ramen does not need to persist.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
What does that mean?
So it doesn't, if we refresh it, it's not longer there.
Exactly. No post requests, no patch requests, none of that required or whatever, right? Persistence, right, means that yes, if you refresh the page or if you close your browser or if you turn off your computer, whatever, coming back, it will still be there. That's what persistence means, right? So no, you don't have to put it in the DB.json file. As long as you click it and it shows up on the DOM, we're good. Or it shows up on the page, not with a refresh or if you buy a new computer and try to load it on that one or something. Max, go for it.
Oh, all I was going to say is that for the form, I just made another constant.
Okay, we can do that.
I don't know.
Global sounds okay. Should we do it like in here?
Yeah,
or
is that
something?
necessary or just no?
I mean, no, right? There's always different ways to do it, but I like that idea because if you don't, right, you're gonna have something like this where it's like document, just doc document dot query selector. What the heck is this thing called anyway? ID new ramen. So ID new ramen, right? Dot add event listener, right? Listen for the submit, right? And we're gonna do some stuff or whatever. Sure, it'll work. It'll work, but like you can say const new ramen form is equal to that, and then say, new ramen form dot add event listener invoked, right? And it starts to be a little bit easier to read. You say, oh, that's the new ramen form. And sure, I could have read a little bit closer in that query selector instruction and be like, oh, okay, I get it, right? But I feel like it's a little bit more comfortable to add a little bit more just for the sake of readability, right? Just for the sake of readability. It'll go a long way. Not only with you going back and looking at your code if something breaks, but someone else coming to look at your code just see what's going on, whatever. But you could chain all this stuff together probably in one function or in a bunch of functions all inside that one fetch and not factor any of it out, and it'll still work, right? But wouldn't be the easiest to read is all. Cool. So this, let's see if this works, right? So add event listener. What do we listen? We're listening for a click, I think, right? Submit. Forms don't click. Forms won't listen for a click event, right? Forms will listen for this submit event that you want to generate. So, yeah, totally going to need the event, right? Totally going to listen for a submit, and then, of course, we're going to take our event object, right? This is an event object, right? And say event object dot prevent default invoked, right? Prevent default invoked. And by casting this spell, right, by activating prevent default, we then lose the whole it doesn't refresh. Cool. Questions there? Grabbing the form, attaching the listener, and preventing that default behavior. Cool. So really, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to do with this event listener, right? With this form, I think in short, right, we're trying to make a new one of these. We're trying to make a new object that looks the same minus the ID, right? We don't need to care about the ID because databases will just give us IDs for free, right? But really, we're trying to build another one of these, right? Our ID and all the other stuff or whatever, right? But without the ID. Trying to build another one of these, Questions just there, which is kind of like what a form's trying to do. Like, why are we trying to build one of these? Everyone okay with this? All right, cool. So really, we could do something like this, where we can say, you know, const new ramen object is equal to that, right? And then hold on, my indentation's all over the place at this point, right? Okay, cool. And then, you know, the JavaScript object notation, right? The JavaScript object notation is very serious about, you know, double quotes being around certain around your keys or whatever. But we're just in normal JavaScript right now, so we don't necessarily need to worry about these double quotes. It's just because it's in that JSON file that needs those. But if you took those out, it's all the same. It's all the same, right? But we don't want to hard code these attributes, right? How are we going to build this object, right? How are we going to know what the user gave us for a name? How are we going to know what the user gave us for a rating or whatever, you know? Where does this information come from? How can I console log it right now, right? Jaquan, go for it.
I was gonna say, I think I might have like majority of this figured out, the form anyway. The one thing I just haven't gotten is how to actually get this form to submit the image, because every time I try to like actually put in a URL for the image and it gets submitted, it's either blank or it doesn't load, like you can't fetch it. Did I show what I have right now, or?
Well, can you? I don't want to get down specific rabbit holes. I just want to maybe get to a solution, and then we can get down to case by case basis after the fact, right? Let's just start real small. The user typed in a name. How can I console log that name?
Would you target the input on the form?
How could I do that?
E.target.
Exactly.
Value.
Yeah, let's change this from event object to E, and you're on the right track. We have E.target.value. Is that what you said?
I think it would have to be like name.value.
Exactly.
I think that's what it was, yeah.
Exactly, right. The name is being typed into this input right here. And if this input field has either a name attribute or an ID attribute, both will work for what we're trying to do right now. You need to access the value that name points to. So in this case, it's kind of funny because name's name. This would be e.target.name. But this one would be e.target.restaurant to get to that one. This one would be e.target.image to get to this one. We can do that right now. e.target.name, right? Let's just console log. Let's just console log that right now. So clicking it, yeah, that's that one input, right? e.target.image, right? e.target, there's that one, right? So that's definitely the way to get to it from the event. So name.value, right, to get the value of that input. And sure enough, if we say name Adam Ramen and submit the form, we have the Adam Ramen. And just real quick, just real quick, I want to go back and talk about every once in a while, you'll only be left with an ID or something like this with like a weird minus sign in the mix. And that would be the use case for brackets, right? You could say e.target.that.value, and it's the same. Let's just do the whatever, right? It's the same. Whoa, it's not the same thing. There it is. It's the same thing. So if your HTML only has these like weird things or whatever, you can still use it in an object like that. Right? Questions there with the random use case syntax? Whatever. We definitely don't have those right now. We can just say e.target.name.value to get to the name. Questions? All right. But yeah, that's it. Then e.target.value could be what name points to, and we're good, right? In the same way, we could do the same thing for restaurant and have restaurant.value. We could do the same thing for image, have image.value, right? We could do the same thing for rating and do rating.value. We could do the same thing for comment and do comment.value. All right, let's try to console log this new ramen object. All right. All right, cool. Will this work? Name, good ramen restaurant, the good spot, image. Oh, where's that burger ramen? Yes. Got a little fun little burger ramen. Copy image address. We'll put it right here. Right. Rating 4. Kinda dry. Uh-oh. Cannot read properties of undefined. Reading value. Line 23. It's this one. Doesn't like this one. How would I be able to find why it doesn't like that one? Me personally, yeah, I would straight up be like, okay, e.target.comment, like why? Let's just let's comment that out or whatever, right? e.target.comment, is that? Yeah, sure enough, undefined, right? What's on? Do I have another console log on 16? Okay, yeah, we don't need that. So we know that's defined. So I guess it doesn't have a key of comment. Oh, see it?
No comment.
It's that weird use case, right? It's that weird use case where, you know, if we try to say, you know, e.target dot, you know, new minus comment, you know, JavaScript thinks we're trying to subtract two variables, one of which is another reserved word, new. And if you get to the optional labs next week, you'll see that one. But yeah, this would be one of those cases where we want this as a string inside brackets and without the dot notation to get to it, right? And then, sure enough, if we, yeah, now we have access to it. Questions? Ryan, go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. So I know you said that for the actual coding challenge, we can't really like change the HTML. But instead of using that bracket notation, can we just change the new comment into camel case? Or something similar to that?
Oh, in the HTML?
Yeah, just
absolutely
like change
not.
New comment to like.
Absolutely not. Right. Immediately no. Immediately no. Cool, right? But yeah, we want to be able to know that this is a different thing, right? And you could totally call like dot value on that, and then yes, maybe. Yeah, we're back. So now we can build an object, right? We can build an object that will hopefully be the ramen we need. You know, let's just give it a little final check. Yes, no, maybe, so. Yes, no, maybe so, right? With a rating of 5. Pausing for questions one last time before we try to put this on the DOM, right? We built an object. Using information from the event that we got from that form, right? If only, right? If only we had a function that would put that stuff in the main area, right? If only we had a function written that would put that stuff in a function that takes an object, and will render the main page already built, you know? And this is where we could reuse that code. We already have a function that will take a ramen object and put it in the main page. So could we just say render main and use that function, right? All right, for the win, I should have saved that for the whatever. Copy image address, right? So name, we'll say the good stuff, right? The good at the good spot. Image that rating 5, very dry, right? There we go. It's on there. Questions?
Can you go back to how you added that again? Where'd you get render main from?
We wrote it. We wrote it when we were. Remember when we were
okay.
clicking on each one, and we needed a way when you click on the top one to have it go down there. That's we wrote it right then, right?
Okay.
Martin, go for it.
So we're referencing.
Oh, sorry, Amira. Yeah, continue.
We're referencing line 41 when we call that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the function on line 49 actually, right? Yeah. We wrote this function here, and we're using it right here, and now we're using it in a second place right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Sorry about that. Martin, what's up?
Doesn't render main just put the new ramen in the main part?
Yeah.
But not in the menu where we need
exactly
the image to show up as well?
Exactly. And this is why I didn't want to factor this out. Because now check it out. Now we have to do all this stuff again, right? So really, I think we need a function render single top, which will do all of this, right? Render single top will take a ramen object as an argument, right? And look like an old school function. And then yeah, for each, right? For each ramen object in the array, right? We need to just render single top and give it the ramen object in the array, right? Now let's just make sure we're not broken. Okay, we're still not broken. Now we made our new object. We need to now render single top and give it the new ramen object. Right? I'm gonna have to go look for that funky fun ramen image again, aren't I? Yep. Is it? I don't even want to trust what any of those pictures are. Let me just find it one more time real quick. Fun ramen pic, right? Images. Where's that burger ramen? Seriously, the burger ramen goes away without the funky keyword? That's hilarious. Funky. Yeah, there we go. Coffee, image address. Should have kept this somewhere. Okay. Are we done? Restaurant, Flatiron School, right? The image is this. Rating is 10 out of 10. And comment, maybe. Right? There it is. Right? And then if we click on an image, right, we can click on that one again to get it. Yeah. By reusing our functions. Questions there?
Could you explain again what those last few steps we did? Those new functions we made?
Yeah, and it wasn't really even a new function we made. We just took it out of. We wrote this function. This function was right inside here, right? It was inside here, right? And we just took it out so we could use it again somewhere else. Like all of this work, right? Was right there instead, you know, but we need to use it again. We need to use this work again up here, and otherwise we'd have to write the whole function again up here to get it to work. I want to reuse it again. So
write it twice.
Yeah, so that's why we just factored it out and used it here, so we could use it and use it here too, right? Does that help?
Confusing to me.
I mean, you can say, okay, I want to do all of this stuff here, right here, right? And then I want to do it all again, right? Here. So we can, and then instead of a ramen object image, it'll be our new ramen object, right? But you see what's going on here? We're writing code twice. We're writing code twice because we need to put an image on the top here and we need to put an image on the top here. To avoid writing the code twice, we factor it out into a function and just use the function again. That's all that's going on there. right? Because all this still works, right? We're not so busted. Oh, we're super busted, right? Ramen objects not defined, 44. Oh, so this needs to be ramen object in the array, right? And we're back. So that's all that's going on. Why write this code twice, right? Because we need to put stuff on top after the fetch, but then we need to put stuff on top after we submit the form, you know? And that's the thing. Why do this stuff twice, right? Why do this stuff twice when we can write a function and just refer that function each time? Does that help, Amira?
Yes.
Okay.
Still confused on that part. Like, I understand theoretically what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's just my brain doesn't say when I get to that step, oh, you know what? I need to create a function. And you know what? I need to copy all these things and paste it down here and move it around. I think the way we move things around, it confuses me a little bit. And it takes me a little while when I'm writing my code. I literally move things around a lot. And
Yeah.
then see the break.
You know what? When in doubt, just don't even worry about refactoring it to be more efficient. Just write the code out. Just write the code. If you need to write it twice, write it twice, right? Okay. I think what's most important, right, is getting it to work. And I wouldn't even worry about a best practice or anything right now, right? Just if you have to write the code twice, write the code twice, and we'll deal with it after the fact, right? But as long as it works, that's the most important part. And I think with that, we are photo finished with time. You can hang around for after party maybe if you want to do advanced deliverables. But if there's no other questions, oh, Ryan, go for it.
No, it's kind of like, I mean, it's not, it's part of the subject. I just wanted to ask, so if we went back to that click event listener.
Oh, for the top?
What would happen? Yeah. What would happen if we change that event listener to mouse over? Would it like appear, like the images would appear whenever the mouse is?
Yeah. What would it say, like on? It's mouse over. Oh, this is gonna be awesome.
Yeah, like in like the restaurant websites.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. But I will get this code. Oh, Julia, go for it.
Hi, sorry, just wondering which lines are actually performing the third deliverable? I got a little bit lost.
This one right here.
Okay.
Really these two, right? Because this grabs the form, this is the listener, and then all of the work inside the listener is what it does. And that third deliverable, it's asking you like, it should be added to the top, right? Oh, it's not saying it needs to go in the main. It just says, I think in the picture though, when they submit the form, it's in both. But I think the letter of the README says just in the top. So if it didn't render it in the form too, no, check that out. So just to the form. So check this out. I think render main is overkill. Not asked for in the README, right? You just need to put it on top. Sorry about that, y'all. But again, who cares, right? Did that answer your question, Julia?
Yes, thank you.
Calvin, go for it.
So as far as the deliverables go, how similar is this to the one we're gonna have tomorrow?
I mean, it's pretty similar, right? It's a mock for a reason, right? You should see something like this tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. May, go for it.
Hold on, I'm just gonna interject there real quick, like, so that it's on the record. That doesn't translate to do this exact thing over and over again and memorize this and expect to walk in and type exactly this for the record.
No pattern
because
matching.
You're not getting this tomorrow.
Yeah.
The concepts you've seen, you might see showing up similarly, but it's not to say, oh, it's going to be a menu for like grilled cheese instead of ramen, and so just take that out of your brain. Practice this for the concepts, not to memorize the flow of how the code looks. So I just wanted that on the books real quick.
May, what do you got?
When you post the code, would it be possible if you could put comments like in the code, just stating like this is
sure. Like
corresponding to this
building a new
deliverable
object. Okay, yeah. So this is like deliverable 3, right? This one is deliver 2, right? And this is render single top is deliverable 1, right?
Yeah, just like that, because they do sometimes get like, because you use functions from other ones, sometimes it's a little, it gets mushy in my mind.
Yeah, of course, cool.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and we actually don't need this because we're not whatever. We know that's the thing, whatever. I see another question. Coolsome.
Hi, my code, for some reason, like if I'm clicking on the images, only one of them shows up.
Okay.
Like no matter which one you click on.
Yeah, something you want, if only one shows up each time, like you can click on any image and it's always the same one that shows up on the bottom. Yeah, something's definitely busted there. I'd love to circle back once we stop the recording. Yeah, we can circle back and take a look at that. Juan, go for it.
On line 16 through 20 in that new ramen variable you have there, can you go over why you placed name, restaurant, image, rating, comment? I get the same result when I put console line. So obviously I'm missing something here.
I'm sorry, did you say explain this?
No, to the left.
This?
Yes.
And what about it?
How did you get there? Like, where did that come from?
We need to build an object that looks the same as the ones in our database, right? And this is what the ones in the database look like. Like as far as like what keys, why I chose to use those keys or whatever. Like I'm using a key of name here because the database has objects with a key of name. Does that answer your question, Juan?
It does. It does.
All right, cool.
Yeah, it does. Just a matter of thinking of the why and the reps.
All right, yeah, cool.
Could you show that function render single top again? I missed that part.
Yeah, that one right there. Render, where is it? Render single top. It's basically what we did in the first deliverable, right? Where and actually deliverable. This is actually deliverable 1 for the 4H. Deliverable 1 renders a single top. Deliverable 2 is render the main page, right?
So you took all of what we did for deliverable 1 and just made it one function.
Yeah, because that's all it was before. It's just that this function was written right here. Right? It was still a function, just like this is a function right here, right? But since we wanted to use it again, I factored it out so we wouldn't have to duplicate our code up here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, why do we have to use it again? I'm sorry.
The README is asking for the third deliverable, right? To the new ramen should be added to the ramen menu div, which is the same thing that's happening in the first deliverable. So we wrote the code to put the image in that top div already. Why write it twice?
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, what else? Well, people are jumping ship. So if there's nothing else, as always, thanks for watching.